My name is Peyton Sullivan, and today I bury my grandmother, Margaret Ellis. She was 78, and we laid her to rest in a small cemetery just outside Seattle. As people drifted away from the graveside, her lawyer, Henry Caldwell, pulled me aside. He leaned close and spoke so quietly it sent a chill through me. "Your grandmother didn't die naturally," he said. "Peyton, if you want the truth, come to my office after everyone leaves, and whatever you do, don't tell your parents or your brother. You could be in danger." Before I could even respond, he walked away, leaving me frozen in place with my heart racing. I tried to convince myself it was just grief playing tricks on me, but there was something in his voice that felt far too serious to ignore. I waited until the last car pulled out of the cemetery, then drove straight to his office. The building was almost completely dark except for a single light glowing in the lobby. When I stepped inside, I noticed a man standing near the door. I had never seen him before. His eyes were sharp but tired. Like someone who had spent years chasing hard truths, I paused, my instincts screaming. I didn't know who he was, but I knew in that moment that my life had shifted in a way I could never undo, even earlier. After the graveside service, I had sensed something was wrong. I lingered near the cars, pretending to adjust my coat, and watched my dad and Laura standing close to Grandma's grave, whispering. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught words about timing and paperwork. It didn't sound like mourning. It sounded like planning. Back at the house, the air felt heavy and tense. Dad called me into the living room and set a stack of documents on the table. Power of attorney, medical decisions. Laura stood beside him, smiling gently as she urged me to sign. "Grandma would have wanted this," she said. The words felt practiced. When I hesitated, her smile tightened just enough for me to notice. That night, I barely slept. Grandma's past warnings replayed in my mind. She had started locking drawers, something she never used to do. She had changed the lock on her bedroom door. Once, she had grabbed my hand and whispered, "If anything happens to me, don't let them rush you." Back then, I thought it was just fear of getting older. Now, it felt like a clear warning. The next morning, Laura offered me tea, Grandma's favorite herbal blend. I didn't drink it. Instead, I drove straight to Grandma's house in her bedroom. I opened the drawer she always kept locked. Inside was a notebook filled with her neat handwriting. Dates, symptoms, bitter taste, racing heart, one line made my hands tremble. "If I go suddenly, check the tea and protect Peyton." That night, I went to Henry Caldwell's office. The man from the lobby was there. His name was Marcus Reed, a private investigator Grandma had secretly hired. He showed me a summary from a private lab test. Most of the ingredients listed were harmless, but one line stood out and made my stomach drop. Unidentified substance detected. It wasn't solid proof, but it was enough to confirm my worst fears. Grandma had known something was wrong, but she hadn't wanted to tear the family apart without certainty. She had trusted me to finish what she started. Marcus explained the larger picture. My dad was drowning in debt. Laura had pushed him into risky investments. Grandma's house and her insurance policy were their way out. If I signed those papers, they would control everything. We made a plan. I would act normal, grieving, trusting. Marcus would quietly gather evidence. I turned a simple grocery trip into a long outing, giving him time to install cameras in the house. Laura grew impatient, her eyes constantly tracking me when we returned home. The tension was thick enough to suffocate. The next morning, Laura made tea again. This time, I watched closely. When she thought I wasn't paying attention, she tipped a small pinch of white powder from a vial into the teapot. My heart pounded so hard I thought she might hear it, but I stayed calm. I pretended to drink. The camera caught everything. Later, in the living room, I confronted them and showed the footage. Laura panicked. Dad went deathly pale. Excuses turned into accusations, and the truth spilled out in broken pieces. It didn't matter anymore. The police arrived quickly. Laura screamed. Dad said nothing. Ethan came running downstairs, confused and terrified. Grandma had protected him too. He had known nothing. Months later, in a cold Seattle courtroom, my father was sentenced to life in prison. Laura received a reduced sentence for cooperating. I didn't feel relief, only a deep emptiness. I left that house behind. Ethan and I stayed in limited contact. Grandma's home was turned into a shelter for women escaping abuse. I moved to Portland and started over. I keep Grandma's teapot on a shelf in my new place. It reminds me that some things are worth saving and some things are worth letting go.